part of Microsoft. I'm in the retail team, and I work with retail consumer goods companies and primarily focus on data and AI. And over the next 30 minutes, I'll just go into scenarios in robotics. So robotics has been a topic that has come up a lot of my conversations. Part of what I do is also work with the product teams within Microsoft to give feedback on what are customers really looking at, what are the business challenges they're trying to address, and where exactly does artificial intelligence and robotics come in. And this feedback really helps the product teams in making decisions on what kind of products to come up with and so on. Some of my colleagues from the product team are sitting back there as well, so feel free to connect with them as well. While I was working on this presentation, part of what I was looking at as well was the whole conversation about RPA versus robotics. That is, robotics process automation and robotics itself. Overall, there's a bit of an overlap in those, mainly because if I'm looking at it from a Microsoft perspective, the overlap really is because we focus primarily on the AI components that drive robotics. And we work with a lot of partners out there that are in the robotics world and the RPA world that actually use these models. The overlap really is RPA is about automating all of the processes. In robotics, the subtle difference is the physical task itself is automated. While talking about this, one of the big challenges many retailers talk about is AI going to replace jobs? And if you saw an article, I think it was about 2 months ago, in the Wall Street Journal, I think, that Walmart published. So Walmart's got a lot of robots that they've introduced. You probably saw one of them is called, I think it's the Bossa Nova robot that does shelf scanning. And it's called the Auto S. And then there's another one called Auto C, which is a cleaning robot. And then there's also a unloader robot. So there's a lot of automation that is going on. Not just Walmart, but there's a lot of retailers that we're working with that are using automation. And the biggest challenge most retailers are trying to address is the perception that robotics will replace human labor. That does happen, is happening, but at the same time, what a lot of retailers are really working on is trying to figure out how do we shift jobs and how do we actually enhance the workforce in other ways. And those are the focuses that many retailers are trying to address and not create the panic of AI is going to replace a lot of the jobs. One of the ways that I kind of look at artificial intelligence in another way, instead of calling it artificial intelligence, call it augmented intelligence. But in a lot of ways, what it's really doing is it is providing ways in which we can become our better selves. We can actually improve the way we work. And I'll talk about a few examples of how retailers in particular are looking at that problem of how do we augment the capabilities of humans with AI and robotics. The areas that I've seen most often that robotics and AI is being used in retail, I've kind of categorized them into a couple of areas. One of them is customer engagement, robots and automation dealing with actual customer engagement. I'll talk about a few examples there. Store operations, micro warehousing, and last mile delivery. Going into customer engagement itself, one of the examples that you probably already have seen a lot of is Pepper the robot. So Pepper uses a lot of AI behind the scenes. Everything from emotion recognition, speech recognition, all those capabilities is what robots use. The challenge that we've seen, or rather one of the things that in my conversations with retailers about robot engagement has been around, whoops, there's the previous one. one of the challenges has been, for many retailers, they feel that customers don't want to engage with robots. They don't want to ask questions to a robot. And I just want to do a poll. How many of you actually feel you want to have conversations or you want to engage with a robot that is customer facing? In general, the answer is no. Everyone hates that. There are certain countries where it was very successful, certain countries it wasn't at all. And then again, there are other kinds of robots. And this is one example where you have a barista where the entire process is being automated. There is other companies that we're working with that do things like assembling salads, creating or rather preparing burgers and so on. So there's Flippy the robot, I think you've heard of those, that actually creates burgers. There's salad assembly robots and so on. And these are sort of functional robots which have a little more success. But we're going to see a lot of that. At the same time, one of the challenges that that many retailers are trying to address is take away the mundane tasks within a store and enable store associates to be able to do more premium tasks, like, for example, engage with customers and so on. One of the examples that we work with is actually, this is an example of an RPA. One of the challenges in a drive-through happens to be where, because of the ambient noise in a drive-through, one of the big challenges for the employee is they don't quite hear the customer well. As a result, the orders may not be taken down correctly, and there is customer satisfaction issues. And as a result, and this is an example, let me play that. So what's happening here is there is a robot that's actually listening in to the customer, transcribing the conversation with the customer, looking for intent and questions, and then actually deciphering what are the products that they're trying to order, converting that to a POS order, and then creating a POS order out of that. So the store associate, or rather the employee who's at the window, is pretty much having a conversation with the customer, and the system is transcribing everything. So this is, again, one way of automating it. At the same time, it's improving the customer satisfaction, because the model was actually trained with historic data, audio files, which had all the ambient noise and the engine noise and so on. And this enabled more accurate transcription of the orders. And this is, again, an excellent way of having robotic process automation and transcribing all those orders. Going into store operations itself, a few scenarios here. One of the tasks that store associates do is periodically walk down the aisles to look for missing products, misplaced products, potentially misprinted labels or misplaced labels on the shelves and so on. And this takes away time from what the store associates normally do, that is engage and help customers. So as a result, a lot of retailers are looking at automating those processes using robots. This was one example. In Walmart, they use a robot called Bossa Nova. In Lowe's, they use a robot from a company called Fellow Robots. Bevmo uses them as well. This is one called Tally. Essentially, they're using AI models, vision models that will actually scan the shelves to look for products. I've had conversations with the robot companies, and they kind of use different techniques for doing this. One of them is train models to actually recognize the products and figure out what products are missing, if there's any misplaced products, and so on. The challenge with that is you have to continuously train these models for any packet changes and so on. And that's one of the challenges that a lot of companies are dealing with. The second way that a lot of companies are doing this is training models to recognize empty spaces in the shelves and also outliers in the pattern that indicate there's a misplaced products at the shelf. So once they recognize that, they send a notification down to the store associate on their mobile devices, and they then go out and replenish the shelves or address the missing or misplaced product. The other one that was just deployed in Walmart, called the Auto C, is another challenge that a lot of store associates deal with. Spill in aisle 6, something like that, which is someone spilled something and they have to go off the floor. So this robot, again, is automatically activated. It goes down and cleans the floor. So that process is, again, automated. There's a couple of things you see here that is AI enabled, detecting people and not having collisions and all those kind of things. One of the advantages that the robot manufacturers actually tell me about is the fact that since most stores are designed to be ADA compliant, it is actually benefiting all these robots going down the stores as well. For micro-warehousing, again, this is a very interesting area. There's a few companies that I'm working with. One of them is a company out of China called Dplus that is working with us. What they're doing is essentially for pick and pack and for click and collect orders. These are just absolutely fantastic. Dplus is a company that I was working with, and this video is actually from Dplus. They're doing automated or autonomous e-commerce, where when you place an order on an online site, that order is, again, passed on to a robot that goes down to the warehouse, goes to the specific shelf, picks up the orders, puts it in a box, labels it, puts it on a belt for delivery or pickup. So it's actually an interesting model for robotics. There are a lot of e-commerce companies, and then micro-warehousing, where I'm working with, again, with a few retailers that are, again, looking at how can we convert all of our stores to micro-warehouses, where when you place an order, it will detect what's your location, what's the closest store, pass the order to the store, and a robot in the back room will pick up your order, pack your order, and make it available for you when you come down and pick it up. Or it will make it available for delivery. This is another interesting one used by Gap from a robotics company called Kindred. Again, it does sorting of apparel. A lot of companies, there's another robotics company called Swissmog that is working with a Swedish fashion company as well that does sorting of clothes, looks at orders from specific stores, and then packs them up into pallets to be delivered to specific stores. And all of that is really automated. Part of that, again, once the micro-warehousing robots actually pick the items that need to be delivered, either to a customer or to a store, the other part of the automation that a lot of retailers are working on is the last mile delivery. And this is with autonomous vehicles. Microsoft is actually working with a company called Ego Mover out of Germany. In addition to that, there's several other companies that are also doing this. For example, this is an example of a company called Neuro that Kroger is working with. Kroger is experimenting in a few cities right now with autonomous delivery. A lot of the autonomous delivery vehicles do not necessarily have to look like the regular vehicles at all, just because they don't need to have a space for the driver, they don't need seat belts and seats and all those kind of things. So the form factor is a lot different as well. I do know that in a few cities, I was talking to a company that does delivery in California. They do require a driver to be in the vehicle at the moment, so it's not really economical yet for those companies. In addition to that, as you can see here, there's an example on the left, which is the actual pick and pack micro warehousing robots. The video that you're looking at right now is from a company called Ocado, which is working with Kroger. And then on the right, once it picks and packs, the delivery is done autonomously with autonomous vehicles like Neuro, Ego Mover, and others. There's several companies that are doing this today. And then also there's companies like, for example, Domino's Pizza has already been experimenting with drones, drone delivery of pizza as well. And of course, yes, yeah, Amazon's doing that. Another interesting aspect that I was talking to when I was working with robotics companies, the robot-to-robot communications, which are kind of interesting scenarios. A lot of companies are looking at, for example, Walmart, the shelf scanning robot, which is on the left, which is their Bossa Nova or Auto S robot, which is scanning the shelf, looking for what products are out of stock. That information is being passed to another automated device in their warehouses that is picking products that need to be delivered to the stores. It's called the auto unloader equipment, and that automatically communicates with the shelf scanner robot, so they know what products need to be sent to what stores based on the scanning that was done. The other one that's interesting from a robot-to-robot communication has been the customer-facing robots that are engaging with customers. The customers could potentially ask for information on certain products. Is a certain product in stock? So all that communication could be passed to the shelf scanning robots that will actually determine if a product is on shelf, where exactly is it located, how many is left, and that information will be passed back to the customer-facing robots, which will then communicate with the customer. So that's another area that a lot of robotics manufacturers are looking at for delivering use cases in store itself. Another scenario that I thought was interesting from an RPA perspective is we're working with a company that does digital mirrors. And digital mirrors, the first version was really about trying out outfits digitally using cameras and screens. But in addition to that, the next evolution that we've been working on is where the camera will actually detect what you're wearing, determine what style it is, and then match it to what products the retailers got and give you recommendations on complementary as well as similar outfits. But the other interesting thing about that, it's sort of like the style advisor in the store that is being automated. So that's another way we're looking at the digital mirrors. The other aspect of it is collecting a lot of data. So every person that engages with the digital mirror, it is determining their age and gender, and also determining what color outfits they're wearing, what patterns they're wearing. And many of the retailers that we're working with, they're looking at the data being collected from across stores in different cities that gives them interesting insights about what's the average 20-year-old in Seattle wearing compared to the average 20-year-old in London wearing. So it's really doing a lot of data collection, and that's what the digital mirrors are doing. That is, again, another aspect of what the customer-facing robots are also doing. They're collecting a lot of information. The vision APIs are collecting information about the traffic, who's engaging with them, what kind of questions are being asked, and that data is, again, being collected as well to improve the efficiency of the stores. With that, I will stop for questions.